Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring really just this one stamp set from my favorite things. It's called Happy Birthday Herd, and there's a reason that I picked it. So before we get too far into the video, just because it is a one-day sale, I'm just going to mention my favorite things is having 40% off of everything. All the things, all the dies, there's no exclusions. It's their entire website. I hit that sale pretty hard this morning and bought a bunch of dynamics that I wanted. That's what they call their dies. And so I did use the stitched square dies in this set. And right now you can get them for like almost $12, $11.39 or something. And then this stamp set's also on sale. They were both in stock when I started this card. I checked before I did the voiceover and they both appear to be in stock if you happen to fall in love with either one of them. We're going to do some Copa coloring today, and we're going to talk a little bit about like crafty burnout. What happens when you lose your mojo? And that is basically, this is a video of story time where I'm going to talk very little about the actual card. So you guys probably noticed on the channel that I put up a video every single day last week. As my friend Dawn told me when she called me, like, girl, you are killing it. They're just, every time I turn around, you got a new video out. And that was obviously done on purpose because it was, you know, the week of Black Friday, and so there was a ton of sales and I wanted you guys to be aware of them. And so I knew that it was going to be a very busy week for me. And sometimes that means that you get a little bit burnt out of coming up with ideas. Now, that isn't always the case, and sometimes you get burnt out for other reasons. For example, I have a little touch of the seasonal depression. When the clocks roll back and there's less sunlight, I struggle with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so sometimes that leaves me feeling a little zapped creatively. Also, during the winter months, but a lot of like, I'm fine usually November and December, but after December, because like everything's been Christmas up until that point, it's been like a month and a half, 2 months of Christmas. When January hits, I struggle because I'm like, what kind of cards am I supposed to be making? So first and foremost, you aren't supposed to be making anything. There is no supposed to be. Like, make what makes you happy. And that is how I picked this stamp set today. This card does serve a purpose. I have a niece who has a birthday in December. I also have a nephew, but this is Kira's card for her birthday. And I chose it because it required nothing of me. It did not require me to figure out a layout. It did not require me to figure out a scene. It did not require me to figure out masking or layering or anything. I like to color, and images like this where everything is already put together in these cute little squares means that I can just stamp them and color them. So let's talk about getting back our crafty mojo when those things kind of go by the wayside. So my first tip is just play. Just sit down, whatever it is, whatever medium brings you joy. For me, it's coloring, but maybe for you, it's painting or it's sitting down and cutting out some die cuts. Like, just give yourself permission to play with no expectation to turn it into anything. Just sit down and do it and enjoy that process. If you can't even get yourself to that point where you're like, I don't even know what to sit down and play with, that's fine too. A lot of people like to organize. I am not one of those people. I'm just being candid and honest here. I am not one of those people. But maybe to get yourself in the right headspace, you like to organize. I do clean off my desk when I am feeling like I don't have any craft mojo, like my creativity is just kind of like lapsing. I do sit down and clean off my desk so I have a nice clean work surface to start with when I am ready to get back to it. So that is suggestion number 2, is sit down, clean your area, organize your things if that's what you're into, and just let that be enough. Number 3, if you find yourself wanting to craft, but you just can't come up with anything, case a card. What does case mean? If you're not familiar, the acronym stands for copy and steal everything. Of course, giving appropriate credit where it's due. But there is nothing wrong with finding a card that is by somebody that you admire or that you enjoy and creating that same card. There's nothing wrong with it. I think a lot of us start off that way. When we're creating, it's not, just our original content. When we sit down, we see a card that this crafter made or that crafter made, and we, you know what I mean? Because you don't know in the beginning, none of us know what we're doing. We're all just making it up, and just like, I'm a process crafter. I enjoy the process. So for me, it's not so much the end result, though I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the sense of accomplishment, but it's really about the process. And so for me, copying and being inspired by somebody else is perfectly acceptable. Like, there's no reason not to do that. So that is point number 3, is to case somebody that you already enjoy their crafts. You can also case yourself, which is tip number 4. Try going back and looking at your old cards, or bringing back old techniques that you loved. So we all know that, like, there's trends in card making, like there isn't anything else. And so for a long time, it was like shabby chic with tons of layers, and then it was super clean and simple. And then, like, right now, layering dyes are really in. And flowers. I think flowers are always in, but maybe that's just me because I love them so much. Could be it. But like, go back and look at your own cards and see, like, oh, I really love the way this one came out. Maybe I could case this. And then, like, you're not taking it from anybody else. It's still your own original work. You're just inspired by, the past you. And that's also, like, a lot of people do that. Like, you see all the time, crafters who are better known crafters in the industry who go back and remake old videos that they did, or go back and put a refresher on old techniques. Like, that's a great way to, and that's another good way to play. Like, if there's older techniques that that you love, sit down and play with them and see if there's a way you can put a new spin on it, or maybe you just really like the technique and you want to use it again. Great, do it. I'm here for all of it. So what are we at? 4? I wrote them down. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. So in looking at the old, also looking at the new, try to learn something new. Like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, in card making. Like, I like to draw, I like to doodle, and not everybody does. I also cross stitch. The other day, so I told you I put up a video Monday through Saturday, and Sunday I had a stamp set that I had pulled out and I was going to make a video with, and I was like, I don't even want to do this. And so I didn't. Like, it was that simple. Like, if I felt like, hey, I didn't want to do it, I just didn't do it. The joy of being your own boss, I guess. And so what I ended up doing was getting my watercolors out and just playing with them. I painted some leaves, I did some doodles. And even though, like, it wasn't for a video to edit, it wasn't for, to take pictures to share, it wasn't to do a different technique, it was just for myself. And, that, like, taking those breaks and knowing when to, like, that you need them is another tip. Like, just sometimes it's okay to just accept the break. So try something new, and it's okay if you're like, I'm not into it right now. Like, you'll come back to it. Most of us, like, artsy, crafty people, you always come back to it. We just go through different seasons in life. And sometimes your crafty mojo can feel like it's gone and that you're struggling to enjoy this hobby that you once loved, but it will come back again. Or maybe you'll just be a person who, does a different type of craft for a little while, I know that I totally go on kicks with cross stitching where I will do it for a long time and then I will take months of a break. And in fact, before I started, like really getting into card making, where I was like working for people and making videos and doing tutorials, that's how all my hobbies were. Like I did one for a couple of months and then I would move on to another and then I would do that one for a couple of months and then I would move on to another. Here, just to point out in the card, like I realized that he's got a little strap on his face and I was using that as the side of his face, so I did have to go back in and fill it. But I didn't leave it in because my head is in the way. Why is my head in the way? Because my chair was up higher than it usually is because of my little precious peanut. He was in here the one day coloring and he's like, why is your chair so low to the ground? So I raised it up for him, and I do like a high seated chair. I know everybody feels differently about that. Like some people like to sit on the floor. I'm not one of those people. But so I raised it all the way up for him and then I forgot about it. And so for my past 2 videos, like I've had, you can see my little wispies right now on the side of the video, my curly top knot. They have been in there. So I need to lower my chair down just a smidge to back where it was to keep my head out of the frame, apparently. But anyway, so where did we leave off? We're organize and cleaning things up. Just give yourself permission to play, case something. What else do we have? Learn something new. We talked about and revisiting our old cards, accepting the break. Okay, so we're up to 5. So with the learn something new, you can also take a class. Right now, today, this is not an affiliate. I just think their classes are wonderful. Online card classes, which is put together by Jennifer McGuire and Christina Warner, who are 2, obviously, as you know, huge name in our industry, endlessly talented women, wonderful, kind. I'm very lucky to call them friends. But take a class. Like, that you can learn so much, and particularly in their classes, they have instructors that have all different kinds of styles. And so it's really nice to be able to see a bunch of different techniques from a bunch of different people. But alternatively, you know, there's like Kit and Clouder. Those are coloring classes. Those are amazing as well. There's just all kinds of classes out there that you can take. Sandy Allnock has classes on her website, and I know that she was having a Black Friday sale. I'm not sure if that's still going on. But a lot of these, Jen Shirkus, amazing. Jen and I have 2 very different styles, but her style is very, like, Jen's capable of so many things, and just because her style isn't necessarily my style doesn't mean I don't learn a ton from her. And her classes are fantastic and a very reasonable price point. So there's a lot of classes out there that you can take. But here's the thing, you can't just buy the class and never take it. Like, you got to buy the class and then do the class so that you are actually, you know, learning something new and getting inspired by other crafters. So speaking of getting inspired, that's another tip, is to find inspiration. Now, everybody finds it differently. You can go on Pinterest, you can go on Instagram, you can see other people who are, you know, other cards that they're putting out to maybe be inspired by, but don't stop there. Sometimes you can get inspired by home decor. That happens to me a lot. Sometimes I'm inspired by fabric prints that I see or canvas prints that I see that will give me an idea that kind of sparks something for me to make a card. So there's a bunch of different forms of inspiration out there. This is one that works for me, but I don't necessarily know that it's a recommend. I'm just going to share it because it is something that works for me, is to go shopping. And I don't mean buy everything and totally blow your crafty budget. That's not what I mean. And you don't need new product to get your mojo back. There's all these other things that you could do. But for me, because I am a colorist and I like, you know, sometimes it gets a little monotonous coloring the same things. And so I do get excited when I see a new image and like I can see the scene in my head, or, you know, I know there's a couple of different ways that I could color it. For example, this stamp set. So this stamp set is a very large stamp set. and I think it's on sale right now for like $15.50 or something. And if you love these critters, they are the same critters from the Carolers, because they're both by Stacy Yakula, who is just a immensely talented illustrator. But anyway, this stamp set has 6 different images in it. So I'm going to color these 2 today, and that still leaves me 4 that I haven't colored yet. So like this for me is a good investment. So I wouldn't recommend, like, again, going just wild and blowing your whole craft budget, but, you know, picking up maybe 1 or 2 things that you know you could use for a bunch of different things sometimes does help me to break out of that you know, that funk that we all get into. And please know that you're normal. Like, we all go through the, you know, the highs and lows where your creativity kind of waxes and wanes. Like, we all go through that. It doesn't matter if you've been a card maker for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years. Like, it's completely normal, because again, we're all in different seasons of life. And like, I remember when I was pregnant with Nathan, you know, I card made all the way up until I delivered him. And then I took like 3 months off. I didn't make anything at all after he was born. Where when I was pregnant with Caitlin, I was not feeling particularly creative. But then as soon as I had her, like, I couldn't wait to get back to the craft room. So just 2 completely different experiences, you know, in the same kind of situation, and being pregnant with my children. So just know that there's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. Welcome. Welcome. You're totally normal. So what do we have? Organize and clean, play, case a card, take a class, find inspiration. Oh, here. Start simple. So what I mean by this is, a lot of times, and somebody had asked me this recently on a video about if I do the whole card from start to finish, or if I make all of my pieces parts and then put them together. I am a person who puts my whole card together from start to finish. Whereas I have other friends who make their like different pieces and then they kind of bring them all together. My brain does not work that way. Now, do I have pieces that I have like completed that I didn't use that are laying on my desk, like flowers that I've stamped or things that I've colored, that I can come back to if it makes sense? Yes, I do. I don't throw those things away. If I've spent the time on them, I keep them, at least until I get to the point where I clean and organize, like we just talked about. But because I am that way, a lot of times when I go to sit down to make a card, I have this incredible pressure that I put on myself to make it from start to finish. And that's not necessary. So if you sit down and you just start simple, just stamp and color an image or just paint an image, there, with no intention of making anything, you really give yourself permission to just enjoy the process and just enjoy the artwork without the need to have everything, you know, completed and buttoned up at the end, which is fine. Sometimes you just have to change your mindset that completed and buttoned up at the end is the, you know, when I finish coloring this image, not when I finish putting together this card. So the other thing that you can do is sketch out some card designs. This was a huge thing for me back when I first started. I did a lot of challenges, which is another tip, but we'll come back to that. I did a lot of challenges. And so some of those challenges were like sketches, and it helped me to sit down and, like, if I had some stamp sets that I wanted to work with, like, I would sit down and do some sketches and then kind of match my stamp sets to my sketch, like what I felt would work best with this or that. So if you just sit down and do some sketches, it can kind of start the thought process for that creativity to open up. So the other thing that I said was another tip is challenges. This is something that is pretty, I don't want to say standard, but I mean, it's pretty common in our industry. we're just going to go back to the card for a second. So at this point, everything is colored up. I did want to color in my squares. This is not necessary, but I knew I was going to map them on white. And so I wanted there to be just a bit of a difference. And so I'm coloring in my squares with this BG11. It's actually called Moon White. It's one of the first colors I bought, and I love it. It's like a really light, like teal color, like a really pale Tiffany blue. It's almost actually the color of my walls, my craft room, which is called Spa. Not that you need to know that or that it's helpful, but I'm saying it's pretty and I like it. But when you're doing that, please be aware as you're outlining your images that you are taking a lighter color around darker colors. And so you need to be very careful because you can pick up some of those darker colors and drag them. If that happens, it's not the end of the world. You can just go in with a colorless blender and then go over it with your background color again. But just something to note. So challenges. Most companies have challenge blogs, or they have challenges that they host on Instagram, or whatever. A lot of them have Facebook groups that have challenges, and that is a great way, like a super fantastic way to jumpstart yourself, because it gives you a jumping off point that it doesn't require any effort from you. Let's go back to the card real quick. So here I had pulled out the light blue cardstock and I didn't really like it. It's that same kind of teal color, but I really like the way they popped off of this pink. This is actually Azalea by Hero Arts. And so I'm just kind of figuring out my layout as far as putting these two on the card. I cut both of my mats out of these stitched squares dies here, just showing you that it fits right in there. If you didn't want to pop them up, you could also cut two of these squares and just use it as a frame. And then for the sentiment, I really liked the sending birthday wishes from your favorite party animals, because this card will be from our whole family. And so I thought that was cute, but I wanted to cut it in half so that I would have part of the sentiment up top and part of it down below to kind of balance out my design. So that's all I have to say about that. So these challenges not only give you a chance to use the product that you are spending your hard-earned money on, they give you a jumping off point that required no effort for you to come up with. So maybe it's a color combination, maybe it's a sketch, maybe it's a theme, and that alone can be enough to kind of jumpstart your mojo. At least it was for me when I was doing them. And it also gives you an opportunity most times to win stuff, which was really my motivation for playing in the challenges, because I had such a limited crafty budget when I first started, that I wanted the gift cards, or I wanted the newest release that they were giving away, or whatever. Like, I wanted the product. That is what I wanted. And so that is why I played along in those challenges. So that one's kind of like a double bonus. It helps you, motivate you to get you out of your craft funk, and then you have a chance to win some stuff. So here you can see that I'm adding some foam tape to the back of these squares. Because I am overlapping them, I should not have put foam tape on all of the edges, but I did. And then you'll see later on that I have to go in and kind of pry it apart so that I could trim it, because they won't lay flat. Like, if you have foam tape on top of foam tape, then you're going to have a double layer of foam tape. If you want them to lay flat, you have to leave the foam tape off of that section so that it will lay flat. So here, where they overlap, is now where I realize I have a double layer of foam tape, and I'm going to have to go in and trim it off. So learn from my mistake. I was just super excited about what I was doing because, again, I didn't really require too much effort for me. I got to color some super cute images, and I will link that video for these little critters. I'll link it at the end in case you totally love them and you want to see that one as well. But so yeah, once I trimmed that off, then I was able to glue these down. I liked the layout better when I could see some of the pink all around the edges. When I put what are these squares? They almost look like little photos. You know what I mean? Like little selfie photos. They're so cute. But when I put them all the way up to the edge, it felt like it was cutting off the design. And so I adhered them in a way that would allow some of the pink to show all the way around. And then here I'm just showing you what my intention is with the sentiments. I thought that this was a super cute, relatively simple card that just allowed me to kind of take a mental break. And I appreciate those type of cards, and that is why I look for these type of stamps, just so that I have them in my arsenal for when I'm having a day where I just really don't want to think about it and I just want to enjoy the process. So I do hope those tips are helpful to you if you are a person who is struggling. Because I know that there were plenty of times, and even now there are plenty of times where I'm on the struggle bus. And now it matters for me more than ever because this is my livelihood. So if I'm not feeling particularly crafty, it doesn't matter. Like, I still have to make something because this is the commitment that I have made to my family, that this is what I am doing for work now. So while I realize most people aren't in that situation, we are all in the situation where we love this hobby and enjoy it. And sometimes it can be very frustrating when you feel like you've kind of lost your ability to enjoy it. At least that's how I have always felt about it. So now I put my sentiments in place. I'm going to add some glitters because I like glitters and I think my niece will like glitters. She's grown, by the way. She's like 25, my niece, but I still think she's going to like this card because it's adorable. And then I just added some white gel pen dots to like the little banners and then all their little birthday hat pom-poms. And then that was it. That pretty much finished off the card. So yeah, I just think it's super cute. And like I said, I still have 4 images that I haven't even touched yet that I will be able to use for cards in the future. So I will link all of those things below if you're interested in checking out those sales. Like I said, it's only one day. And then that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.